I'm sure all of you guys know at this point that Sony has announced that starting in January 2028, they will no longer be producing physical game discs. All of their games going forward from that date will be digital only. They will have retail presence, but that retail presence will be code in a box. And that's something that we've hated for a long time. Code in a box. Like, I remember when I first learned about it, how I scoffed at the idea that, you know, why are they even giving you a box? What's the point of the box if there's just nothing but a slip of paper that has a download code on it for you? What is even the point? Just skip the plastic case and move on with your day, right? Well, I guess that's going to be the norm moving forward. Again, Sony is ceasing production of physical discs for their video game consoles starting January 2028. It'll all be digital at that point. And I think that stinks. I really think that stinks. I'm sure that you guys know at this point, but just for those of you who maybe haven't been here in a little while, I am a physical game collector. I've got quite the stack of Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 games at this point. I clearly care about physical media, and the fact that that's all, you know what, I'm just gonna keep this here. The fact that that's going away, starting with Sony in 2028, and make no mistake, they will all be digital sometime after that January 2028 Sony switcheroo here. I know it's just Sony right now, but I guarantee that the PlayStation 6 and the Xbox Helix will not ship with a disc drive standard. There may be a disc drive, maybe to like get the license for your PS4 and PS5 games onto your PS6. Who knows how that's gonna work? But there will be no PS6 games that are on a disc. There just won't be. And I've seen some nuanced takes to this whole thing on YouTube over the last essentially 2 weeks. But the outcry, first of all, let's just address the outcry for a minute. The outcry is extremely loud. I do think it's a vocal minority, and that given that 80% or more of Sony's player base prefers digital games and buys digital games, I do think that that's a minority that's really just being loud at this point. But again, it is a minority, and Sony even cited that as one of their reasons why they're moving towards digital only. That said, I don't think that that's the reason why. I think that there are a couple reasons. One, this is going to be more like, I don't want to say optimistic or like, you know, seeing the best in everyone or like thinking the least evil of everyone. But in fairness, and there are a couple of people who have had a nuanced take to this, physical games have been dying out slowly but surely, and this was just the death knell. I mean, as a Nintendo gamer primarily, I've been shielded from this for the most part, but on platforms like PlayStation and Xbox, games have just been getting enormous at this point. Regularly going over 100 gigabytes, which, by the way, for the highest end Blu-ray discs that I know of, they have a limit of 100 gigabytes. You go over that, you either need to put two discs in a box, or you just have a portion of the game be downloaded. For some time, physical discs have been a limitation, given just how massive games have been getting. I think that that's also been pushing us towards digital. We've been seeing a lot more discs and game key cards that don't have the game on them. They just are essentially something that tells your console that you have the ability to download the game. You have the license to download the game. For a long time, that's been a thing. Even before Nintendo did these game key cards. An example is, you know, well, this isn't a great example, but a game that I have that doesn't have all the game data on the disc is Spyro the Reignited Trilogy on PlayStation 4. Famously, or infamously I should say, that game did not ship with all 3 games complete on the disc. It's only like the first portion of the first game that is actually on the disc. You have to download the rest. It's been a thing for a long time. Like, that was in, what, 2019, I want to say? 2018. Spyro Reignited Trilogy came out in 2018, so that was a thing way before Switch 2 game keycards were a thing. And again, that's partially because of the size of games at this point. So that's the whole, like, not conspiratorial or not skeptical or not pessimistic side of things. There is a reason why physical games are no longer like the default, as far, or no longer a given, I should say. But make no mistake, Sony is making this move not just because 80% of their player base prefers or buys more digital games. It's not just because physical games have been starting to lose their relevance just because of video game file sizes. A large part of it is control. I believe that a large part of it is control. They control that with this move to digital, they control where you buy your games and how much profit they're going to be getting from their games. Reminder, when a video game company sells you their video game digitally on their digital marketplace, they get a much higher cut of that game's sales. I heard recently that when you buy a physical game in stores, the video game publisher or whoever is like selling you the video game, or whoever is getting your money from that video game sale, they lose 30% of that revenue from the sale as a cut to the retailers, and you know, shipping fees and actually printing the discs and all that. They definitely lose a substantial cut when they sell it physically. So they unquestionably get more profit from from selling the games digitally to you. However, we've seen a disturbing pattern with video game companies shutting down games, shutting down servers for games, and Sony even, ironically, very recently, just removed from their paying customers' libraries and the servers over 500 movies on their streaming service or their video service or whatever it is. I don't really know what it is, but there was some licensing dispute where Sony removed 500 movies, including out of their customers and consumers' libraries. Literally, if you bought movies from this server that were included in that removal, you can't watch them anymore, even if you paid for them. That can absolutely happen with digital video games. Can't happen with this, as far as I'm aware. Super Smash Bros. On the Switch? Nintendo not coming to my house to take this out of my hands. And unless they blacklist my Switch or something like that, it ain't gonna happen. Like, I will be able to play that game for the foreseeable future, at least until my Switch consoles or my game cartridge no longer works. Man, Sony will have absolute control over what you have in your library, where you buy the games, how much money they are going to make from these sales, and whether or not you actually still get to play them. Like, again, they can remove this stuff from your library without your consent, without having to repay you or, like, refund you or whatever. Just poof, gone. And I think that that sense of control is something that they absolutely want. And the last downside to this that I have on my mind right now is that it is less competition, and therefore they get to set the price much more aggressively than they have been able to in previous years or in previous generations when physical games have been a thing. There again, there will be a retail presence on store shelves. And I don't know how much that's going to affect how much they can sell these games for, but I anticipate when the full move to digital is actually in full swing, they will have much less reason to charge you for these games at a reasonable cost. They'll still need to meet the supply-demand curve. If they price their games too high, there will not be a demand for them and they won't sell as many copies. But I think they're going to be pressing on that curve much more aggressively. And we, the consumers, will either have, well, we'll only have two options. Buy it or don't. And that's it. At least before, you could go, like, look for a cheaper used copy or look for sales on game stores or, like, you know, Walmart and Amazon have this thing right now where if you pre-order Switch 2 games physically, you'll still get it for the digital price, even though $10 or the physical copy is $10 more. That's not going to be a thing anymore. I don't think. I don't really know how that whole retail presence with the download codes in a box is actually going to work. But it's a very disturbing move. Very disturbing. And once again, I think you can tell that I am a big fan of collecting games physically. I will admit to you guys, I had a bit of time there when I was first buying my own video games, where I was embracing more digital games. There were a total of, I think, 8 games on my 3DS that I bought digitally. There was Fire Emblem Awakening, Fire Emblem Fates, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga Remake, Mario and Luigi Dream Team, Yoshi's New Island, the NES Remix collection, Zelda Majora's Mask, and I think the other one might have been like the other Fire Emblem Fates game. There were like 3 different versions of that game, or 2 different versions. Excuse me. And I bought, it was Birthright and Conquest, I think. And I think I got both of those digitally. And then on the Wii U, I had a couple digitally. There was Zelda Wind Waker, and that might have been it. But for the most part, the only reason I got those digitally were, well, one, you know, buying my own games at that point. I was starting to fall into the idea of like, oh, it's more convenient to have it on my console digitally. Like, you know, just buy it, and download it now, and play it, and blah 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 blah. But eventually, I came back around to the idea of, and I think I'd always been primarily physical games. Like I've always liked physical games better. Also, there were a couple of sales that I took advantage of. Like, I got Wind Waker, I think, for $20 on the Wii U. There were a couple of birthday deals. Like, I got, like, 30% off of the Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga thing or whatever. That all is to say, primarily I'm physical as far as video game collecting is concerned. I absolutely treasure being able to have it, have your games on physical formats to, one, just have on your shelf and look nice as part of your collection. I love looking at my collection of video games and just thinking about all the memories that I've had, playing them, enjoying them, sharing them. Lots of fun stuff with, like, looking at them on the shelf, just being sentimental over it, being yeah, just being sentimental over it, having good memories with them. I don't get that as much with digital games. Sometimes I even forget that I even have the game on the console, you know? But, and I know that I just described a little bit ago that physical games have been losing some sort of functionality and some sort of practicality in today's day and age with the increasing sizes of files on these games. But, you know, something that the other game companies don't do right now is, that Nintendo does, is that when you have the game fully on the cartridge, you don't have to install it to your system, and it saves internal storage. I mentioned a little while ago that my Switch OLED only has a 128 gigabyte SD card in it. And I have something like 60 games on that Switch, but because so many of them are physical, it saves a lot of storage space, and that 128 gigabyte SD card really does the trick. Even now. And then there's the ease of sharing games. Even with the game key cards and the game disc cards, or whatever they're called, or whatever people are calling them, you can share those with your friends and your family pretty easily. But digital, it's either a hassle or impossible. But yeah, I guess that all is to say, this was inevitable, I think. Going fully digital, I think all of us were expecting it to happen at some point. But we all knew that, and I think most of us dreaded that transition, knowing full well what the downsides are, knowing full well that the companies have much more control over availability, over pricing, and over ownership. Truly, in a digital day and age, you will not own anything. And the companies hope that you will be happy owning nothing. The game companies don't see these as art, something to be preserved, something to be perpetually enjoyed. They see it as content to be sold. And that's sad. That's sad. I mean, like, these, I think, have a reason to perpetually exist in some form or fashion. And the companies are making it harder and harder to make that happen. Wow, that's really bleak. Good Vibes Gaming put out a video recently. It was John being the host of that particular video, said that when the full switch to digital happens, he's going to support physical games as long as they exist. But when they don't, he says he's done. He says he's done buying new games, covering new games, playing new games, and he will likely just focus on older titles. Titles that he can have physically. Titles that he already owns. He says that he's got enough games to last him a lifetime. And I will admit that I very much resonate with that point of view. Again, I had a period where I did buy some games digitally, but it wasn't my primary way of buying games that had a physical copy available. And when the Switch came out, I mean, I own over 40 physical Switch games. I love collecting these things. I love having that sense of ownership, that sense of you can't take this from me, that sense of when the stores, or when the digital stores, eShops, the PlayStation Store, the Xbox Store, when those things go down, and I am no longer able to download the games that I previously purchased, at least I will still have these. These are not dependent on a server for anything other than update data or DLC. At least when the servers go down. And at least when the servers go down. And when I can't even download the games I've purchased before, at least I can still play Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, even without an internet connection, even without some sort of call to the server, even though none of that is available anymore. I still have it. I can still play it. Even though it may not be the most optimized version that it could possibly be, I can still play the game. Similar to how with my Super Nintendo, my childhood copy of Super Mario World, it is older than I am, but I can still pop that thing in the console and play it. I own that game, or that copy of that game. Nintendo is not going to take it away from me. It's not dependent on a digital store. And we're losing that ability. It really does bring to mind the temporal nature of these things and exacerbates it in a way that is frankly quite depressing. And like John on Good Vibes Gaming, I think that when digital games are the only way to buy games, I'm at least going to have much less of an interest in partaking. I don't know if I'll be able to fully cut off new games. I don't know if I want to do that to my kids. I know that JJ is going to want to play like the newest Mario game or the newest Pokemon game when that comes out, or the newest Mario Kart, the newest Smash Bros. And by the time he gets to the age where, you know, like the digital age is truly upon us, I don't think he's going to care as much. He likes physical games. He wants to get a copy of Mario Kart World on physical cartridge just because he recognizes, at even such a young age, some of the limitations of digital. But I don't think it's going to be as much of a hurdle for him, and I don't know if I want to be selfish enough to the point where I deprive my son of, or all of my kids, of those gaming experiences just because I can't buy a cartridge. But I will for sure have less interest in doing so. It's the end of an era, guys. Physical games have been creeping towards that maw of death for quite some time now, and Sony just put their lead foot on the gas pedal and is taking us there in a hurry. And again, make no mistake, the rest of the industry will follow. Even Nintendo, who is often behind on these things by quite a few generations, there will be a time where Nintendo no longer supports physical games. It's just inevitable. Doesn't make it suck any less, though. And one final thought. I know this is cliche to say, but you know what? It's true. And I don't want to encourage criminal behavior, but screw it. If buying is not owning, then piracy is not stealing. I'm not outright telling you to go pirate these games. And my stance has for a long time been, if the game is available on a store shelf at retail for you to buy, I don't support pirating it. But when none of them are anymore, I don't know that I'm necessarily opposed. So take with that and do with it what you will.